Welcome to This Explainer. I am so thrilled to have you here today. We are about to explore a digital landscape that is literally like no other on Earth. We're going to uncover exactly what happens when one of the most isolated nations on the planet logs online. We're peeling back the layers of a massive, hidden operation that spans the entire globe. And it all starts with a mystery that honestly sounds like it was ripped straight out of a Hollywood spy thriller.
Okay, let's dive into this. Picture this, a completely everyday average TikTok user named Christine Chapman. For years, she was posting the most mundane, run-of-the-mill content you could possibly imagine, right? She documented her weight loss, she reviewed stuff she bought on TikTok Shop, vented about mental health, made fan posts about her favorite K-pop idols, just normal stuff. But in 2024, her online presence abruptly vanished right after she posted about losing her house. Now, when a creator disappears like that, you might naturally assume they met with some sort of tragic real-world fate. But the reality? She was handed a 10-year prison sentence
for personally helping to fund North Korea's ballistic missile program. I know, it sounds absolutely unbelievable. You're probably thinking, how does someone posting about how to adult on TikTok end up as a key American liaison for the DPRK's military-industrial complex? Well, it all started with a seemingly innocent job offer on LinkedIn. Christine was hired by a small software company for a cozy $4,000 a month remote IT gig. But pretty soon, she had 40 laptops running simultaneously in her house, processing checks and setting up remote access software to funnel money abroad. She had unwittingly, or actually perhaps willfully, become a critical cog in a massive international machine.
Section 1, Room 39's Remote Workers, the Corporate Infiltration. So that company that hired Christine? Yeah, it wasn't a standard tech startup. It was a front for a highly secretive branch of the North Korean government known as Room 39. Their whole purpose is to bring foreign money into the country through illicit activities. And when the huge boom in work-from-home software engineering jobs hit, they saw an unprecedented opportunity. Here's exactly how they pull this off. First, they steal American identities. But to make the illusion work, they need someone physically inside the US, like Christine, to host the corporate laptops so the IP addresses look totally legitimate. Next, North Korean software engineers pose as Americans and ace these remote IT interviews. Sometimes they use deepfakes, other times they rely on scripts and AI chatbots, which completely explains those awkwardly long pauses you might hear on a call. Once they're hired, they just do the job, while secretly stealing intellectual property, installing crypto miners, and siphoning those massive corporate salaries straight back to the DPRK.
And this brilliantly illustrates the scale of what we're talking about. Software engineering salaries can easily top $200,000 a year per worker. When you multiply that across hundreds of fake employees, it's estimated the scheme brings in up to $1 billion annually. $1 billion. And that money goes directly into funding the munitions department to build ballistic missiles. And this is not just an isolated incident either. The founder of one crypto startup recently said that a staggering 95% of the resumes he receives for remote positions are actually from North Koreans posing as Americans. 95%.
Because this problem is spreading like wildfire, companies have had to get pretty creative. One security researcher came up with a brilliantly simple, absolutely foolproof interview test. When he suspects an imposter candidate, he casually stops and asks them, "Hey, could you say Kim Jong-un for me?" The response? Absolute hesitation. Just, sorry, no. They outright refuse to say their leader's name casually on a video call. It's a touch of dark humor for sure, but it is a highly effective way to crack the facade.
Section 2. The secret Kwangnyong Internet, North Korea's internal web.
So we've seen how North Korea infiltrates the global internet, but what does it actually look like inside their own borders? Look at the stark contrast here. On the right, we have the global internet we all know with billions of websites. On the left, the Kwangmyong Internet. This is a highly restricted network used by a tiny fraction of the population. It is completely disconnected from the outside world and heavily monitored. It only hosts a few thousand websites, all ending in .kp. On top of that, only about half the population even has a device capable of accessing it, and those smartphones and tablets have to be strictly registered with the state. It's honestly kind of like getting a license for a firearm in other countries.
So, what's actually on this isolated network? Well, some of the sites have been mirrored to the global web, giving us a really bizarre peek inside. You have Air Koryo, the national airline, where almost every link to book a flight just leads to a totally blank page. Then there's Voice of Korea, pumping out exactly the kind of state-run propaganda you'd expect. But the strangest one has to be manmulsong.kp. It's an e-commerce site where you can't actually buy anything. It just displays pictures and descriptions of groceries. It functions way less like Amazon and more like a digital supermarket tour to fame prosperity. It's just a way to tell citizens, hey, look at all this great stuff our country produces, even if they literally can't purchase any of it.
Section 3. State-sponsored global propaganda, influencing the West.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the horrifying reality of who is actually speaking here. That quote wasn't from some government official. It was spoken by a young girl on a YouTube Kids channel named Song A. Imagine handing your tablet to your kid to watch cartoons, and suddenly they're being fed state-sponsored North Korean propaganda. It is incredibly off-putting watching a child with these heavily coached mannerisms talking about how many different types of candy you can buy in Pyongyang. The regime was intentionally trying to spread propaganda directly to Western children without their parents even knowing.
The crucial takeaway here is that this is a highly organized machine. While average citizens only get that closed-off internet, there's an elite group of loyal military and government officials who have full global access. By 2017, the government had 7,000 people working full-time at places like the Sagwang Media Corporation. They create these fake influencer accounts, like Cold Noodle Fan on Twitter, to target both Western adults and kids. They pump out videos showcasing fully stocked grocery stores, luxury beauty salons, and they completely denied that COVID-19 ever existed within their borders, even though they had one of the highest infection rates in the world. The entire goal is to mask a brutal autocracy with this eerie, scripted, completely fabricated sense of normalcy.
Section 4. Smuggled footage exposes reality. The Rimjin-gong journalists.
But, of course, that carefully curated image is just a facade. To find out what's really happening, we have to look to the incredibly brave, undercover journalists working with Asia Press since 2007. This comparison lays bare the grim reality. The state loves showing off fully stocked supermarkets, right? But the smuggled undercover footage reveals long lines outside stores with completely empty shelves, where clerks just admit there's nothing for sale today. Instead of happy children in amusement parks, the reality is unkempt kids selling food in these improvised dirt markets just to survive. And those advanced high-rises, they are built using dangerous, unpaid civilian labor on buildings that experts say might only stay standing for 10 to 15 years. It is a devastating reality of extreme poverty. To put it in perspective, in the border city of Haisan, China literally installed an observation deck so their tourists can look down at North Korean citizens like a human zoo.
And getting this raw, unedited footage out to the global internet, it requires impossibly dangerous logistics. A network established by Japanese journalist Ishimaru Jiro uses tiny, hidden cameras to film everyday life. They then smuggle this footage out on USB drives and DVDs, concealing it inside shipments of bootleg media traveling across the heavily guarded Chinese border. Every single video we see represents a real person risking their life to show us the truth.
Let's move to and see how this builds in Section 5. Cyber attacks and the global threat, the WannaCry escalation.
We go from ideological propaganda to a devastating attack on global physical infrastructure. On May 12, 2017, the world experienced a rapidly spreading nightmare. A ransomware virus called WannaCry, which was built using a stolen NSA exploit, automatically infected 250,000 computers across 150 countries in just hours. The UK's National Health Service was completely paralyzed. We're talking MRI machines and blood storage refrigerators locked up, forcing the cancellation of 19,000 medical procedures. The panic literally only stopped at 1 p.m. when a 22-year-old security researcher named Marcus Hutchins found a hidden domain name in the code, registered the website for $10, and inadvertently activated a global kill switch.
And the brutal disproportion of this attack is it's absolutely staggering. Bringing critical medical and industrial systems to a sudden halt caused an estimated $8 billion in losses to the global economy. $8 billion. And the payout? Well, because the public was widely warned not to pay the ransom, North Korea's elite cybercrime unit, the Lazarus Group, only collected about $140,000. They caused catastrophic global damage for a completely measly financial return.
Section 6. The Empathy Pivot. Remembering the real citizens. After talking about massive cyber heists and global propaganda, I want to completely drop the cyber thriller tone for a moment. It is so easy to view this entire topic through the lens of a villainous state machine. But we have to make a grounded, empathetic pivot to the everyday people actually living inside the DPRK. Back in 2008, French photographer Eric Laforgue visited the country with a Polaroid camera. Because he could instantly print a photo and hand it to the subject while keeping one for himself, he captured something truly incredible. These simple photographs bypass the regime's carefully curated image completely. We see unscripted, natural moments.
These people aren't trying to put forth the right image for the state. They're just posing for a photo like anyone else would. They're sleeping, eating, getting married, having kids, just acting naturally.
And that leaves us with this powerful, provocative thought to close on today. How do we separate the actions of an undeniably cruel regime from the 26 million individuals trapped inside the machine? You know, behind this cyber warfare, the stolen identities, the bizarre state propaganda, there are millions of real human beings just doing whatever they have to do to survive. It fundamentally changes how you look at the news, doesn't it? Thank you so much for joining me to unpack this explainer today, and I really hope this leaves you wanting to learn even more about the real stories hidden behind the digital curtain.